I believe that everybody has a story, and I'm fascinated to hear them. So come with me as we take a walk down Fascination Street. This episode is brought to you by Squeaky Clean Window Cleaning. Squeaky Clean Window Cleaning is a San Antonio area window cleaning service that specializes in residences. Click on the logo link on the Support the Show page. It'll take you to a contact page where you can request a bid. In the comments section on that page, mention Fascination Street and you will get $100 off of your first whole house window cleaning, whether that's inside and outside or just the outside of the windows. Thanks for supporting the show. This episode is also sponsored by Pure Vitamin Club's Sublingual B12 tablets, which is the only sublingual B12 supplement that doesn't contain binders and fillers and delivers 2,000 micrograms of the B12 form nature intended directly to where it's needed by dissolving tastelessly under your tongue. Everyone needs B12. It's an essential water-soluble nutrient that your body can't make on its own. B12 gives a boost of energy to vegans, active people, people over 65, anybody who is experiencing low energy or fatigue, and anybody who experiences mood swings or is depressed. Click on the photo link on the home page or on the Support the Show page at fascinationstreetpod.com. Hey guys, remember I told you that a few months ago I got to go on this really amazing trip to LA and interview a bunch of cool people? Well, this is another one of those interviews. This is Clint Howard. This will be a part 1 of 2. This dude was so rad. He picked me up from the airport. He let me stay at his house. We hung out every day that I was there. We went out to eat. We went swimming at his childhood home. We did all kinds of cool shit. And he was nice enough to sit down with me for a couple of hours and record some episodes with me. So here's part 1, and enjoy.
Yeah, talk to me, yeah.
Ready?
Yep. You good?
New York shake. Boy, if that doesn't bring back the 80s for me.
Yeah, no kidding. What are we listening to, man? What is this?
Well, this is the Kempsters doing the New York Shake, and it was inspired by my trip to New York filming Night Shift.
Night Shift?
Yep. In 1981, I believe, I was back there over New Year's Eve working on the movie. I think we did about 4 weeks in New York, and then they did probably 6 or 8 weeks here at Warner Brothers. And I was back there in New York over the New Year's Eve holiday period. In fact, I had an experience where New Year's Day I found myself in a parked subway car in Penn Station, having not quite stayed awake from my place where I was having fun New Year's Eve and Manhattan. And thank God nothing happened, but you know.
So you fell asleep on the train?
Well, yeah, you know, I think they discourage people from passing out on subway cars.
I was being kind. That's I fell asleep. You're going to go with passed out? Well, it was New Year's Eve.
Well, yes, it was New Year's morning.
In the 80s.
I'll tell you what, the Kempsters were just firing up, and the Kempsters was a band that I had when I was 23, 24 years old with my best friend Scott and our other buddies, and we were a really good garage band, and we played around the LA club scene. We did enough recording and enough playing to where we were able to go back and find good recordings to digitize. And even though technically the recordings are sloppy, it's really a wonderful memory for me and my other friends that were experiencing those Kempster years. Because you see, I lived at the Burbank Youth Center. I was the first guy in my group of friends to have a house. And when I was 19 years old, that house became the rallying point for every piece of debauchery a Burbank kid could get into. And well, first of all, it wasn't debauchery to have a band, but the drums were in the dining room, the monitor, the PV monitor was in the living room, and we had the couch situated a certain way to where a few people could watch us rehearse, because the Kempsters rehearsed in the living room on Kemp Street.
That's so cool. How often do you listen to this album? I probably listened to this album between 70 and 90 times since you gave it to me a year ago.
Well, thank you. You know what? I listen to it. I listen to the Kempsters probably once every 2 months. And when I mean listen, I will go back and listen to, probably about 2 hours worth of recordings. Because we have recordings that don't sound real good.
Right.
From
the garage days.
Well, yeah, and, we played reunions and stuff back in the days where it was analog tape, and the equipment wasn't nearly up to today's technological standards. And in fact, we're very lucky to even have good recordings. Our live recordings, this is from 1982. This is the Kempsters doing No Brains at All live, and oh man, I love this song. We were setting a stereo Walkman on a cocktail table and recording the band. That's what this is. This is not through a board.
Like a boombox?
This is through a little Sony Walkman.
Oh, really?
Stereo recorder that our guitar player had, and he would try to find the center of the room, and we'd put it on a cocktail table, and we'd have his wife and Scott's girlfriend sit at that table so no one would touch the table and make noise, and hopefully we would get a decent balance of the house.
And y'all did that for a lot of shows?
Yeah, most of the time it didn't work. Most of the time there was something that was overriding something else, like the drums were too hot,
right? Or
the bass was overwhelming the lead guitar player, or the rhythm guitar player was not able to get the volume that was needed to carry the song. So, but every once in a while we got it right, and we got it right enough to be able to put together a CD. And I'll tell you what. When I really need to hear rock and roll, I can put on the Kempsters and it still will make the hair on the back of my neck stand up.
Yeah?
I'll turn it up really loud and I can picture myself being there. And, it's a little like what people say about being on stage in the theater, is there's no feeling like it. There's no feeling like performing in front of a live audience. I had a tremendous rush performing in front of club audiences this music. I've never done a stage play. So outside of the couple of times I've done sitcoms where there's been a live audience, I've never done like a staged performance.
Really?
This is the closest thing I have, and I'll tell you, it was an exhilarating feeling to, with your friends, to get fired up and do original music that you wanted to do your way and entertain people. Although we had a little niche audience, they weren't booking us Friday night at the big clubs, but we had enough people interested in our kind of brand of punk music to where, we drew people into the houses.
That's awesome. Well, let me ask you this. As we roll into this first segment, can I cut in one of the songs off the album?
Oh, of course. The Kempsters are the kind that we're virtually public domain. So, no, if anybody wants to play the music, I say God bless them, tee it up.
All right. Well, which song do you want to do?
Oh, I would be tickled pink if you did any of the songs, including Dying in a Diving Bell or Hard Boiled Babies, but those may be a little tough for most modern audiences. I'll tell you what, a really nice song, and it's our instrumental, is that a surf tune, Walk in the Nose.
Walk in the Nose? All
Walk
right.
in the Nose. Music to eat corncob by.
Corncob. Interesting. All right, guys. Hey, here's Walk in the Nose by the Kempsters.
Now we're gonna do some music deep pussy by. It's a song called Walk in the Nose.
Okay, now it's recording. I don't know what happened.
Well, did it not record at all?
No, I didn't record any of that. Damn it.
Well, you know, I have that. That Tascam. I mean,
it's working now.
Do you have plenty of juice?
Oh yeah, I got all juice and all room.
Have you ever considered doing a podcast about like things you
Something
find really boring,
like history or Benjamin
boring.
Franklin?
No, boring.
No, I haven't.
You say you want things interesting,
Fascinating.
fascinating, mundane. paint dry.
The funny thing is that I'm sure that some of the people that I find fascinating, nobody else will. Like the first episode was, I interviewed my mother-in-law about how she met my father-in-law. You know, like their whole story. And then a little while later, I interviewed my father-in-law about his time in Vietnam. And at one point, this is what really struck me odd about his interview, is that I've known this dude 15 years. The family's known him obviously longer, forever. And at one point in his life, he had a pet monkey, and that never comes up. That's not talked about. Like, it just doesn't come up.
Did the monkey meet a bad demise?
It actually did not end well, you know, as
gutted like a fish?
No. It fell and hit its head and just kind of went away. But
kind of like William Holden.
Exactly like William Holden.
He should have had a drinking helmet on. If the little monkey would have had a drinking helmet on, William Holden, if he would have had his William Holden drinking helmet on, he would have lived.
Well, he'd still be probably not alive today.
Never fear coffee table corners again.
Well, you know, they actually sell cushions for the corners of coffee tables.
Oh yeah, babies and shit. I'm getting rid of this.
Yeah, they sell babies too.
This is dangerous. I have not hurt myself.
What do you mean it's dangerous?
Oh, sharp, jagged edges around coffee tables. I think I kind of like the idea of a wooden coffee table.
Well, how long have you had? Oh, like a wagon wheel one? You should get that wagon wheel one from that one movie.
Yeah, I don't know, wagon wheels.
Every movie.
Wagon wheels. Have you ever tried to like eat or set something down on a wagon wheel?
No, because
it's funky.
I'm not old. We don't have wagon wheels.
That actually would be
but
a
I bet you
idea.
could make one.
Well, you know what? I'm not a big furniture guy. I've thought about with my arts and crafts and doing the snow globing and various other things that I might try to tackle a piece of furniture, but that would take real skill. And, you know, like spit and little pieces of gum don't really work real well when you're talking about building a nice piece of furniture. I did finish a nice piece of furniture that's back in the bedroom, a little vanity that's really nice. I like working with my hands.
Clearly.
For such a long time, I didn't. You know, I played golf, but I wasn't creative. Unless trying to make a par on a long par four creative. But
well, you got to get creative to get out of the sand, right?
Yeah, I don't know. Golf is such a double-edged sword. I so miss it and enjoyed it and have such great memories of it, and yet I don't for a second want to think about how hard it's going to be to again play consistent enough to consider myself decent. You know, yeah, because I'm not going to play if I'm just a hack. If I'm looking up at 100 in 6 months, I'll have to say sayonara golfing, you know.
You don't mean 6 months from now?
Well, when I start playing.
Right.
I mean, there's a golf course up here that's relatively short that I used to be able to, you know, have a really bad flu and shoot 84, 85 on. And when I had my
It's a 9-hole putt-putt?
No. It's a little 4,800 yard, 5,000 yard par 70. It's a little short golf course, tight. If you hit it straight and you kind of know how to play it, and you know, it's a good little golf course. It's called DeBell here in Burbank, and I love playing golf, but I do not like looking north at 100 because. To me, golf is a game that you keep score. It's not hit and giggle. It's not don't count that judge. It's not there's a do-over. We all have do-overs now. No. You put your peg in the ground and you put your ball on top, and that first swing you take is your first stroke. It's just the way I always played. And, you know, I got mad at people that didn't play golf. And so I'm not going to be able to enjoy myself if I can't play. I mean, like one thing I was talking to my buddy about, the short game. I mean, here I've been feigning and occasionally going and hitting balls and watching it go frightfully short. I've got lousy grass to chip on, so I can't really chip here at the house. The short game is really, really where a guy my age can make his bones.
Right.
I mean, how many greens am I going to hit on my best day? 3 or 4. I get up and down another 3 or 4 times, and I got myself a little round going. Now it's 3 giant whacks to get somewhere greenside, and then I'll play hockey till I get it to the cup, and I'll take my 8.
Now your short game can't be too affected, right?
When you stand over that ball and you got a little money on the line, and you gotta really land it right there, and you gotta have a little bite to it, and when they say you got the yips, 58-year-old men get the yips, and you can get the yips with your pitch shot. The only thing I never had any trouble was bunker play. I was always about a 4 or 5 stroke better bunker player than
Really?
Yeah. I was a 5 bunker player when I was an 8 or a 9. I just, for whatever reason, take it back and accelerate and hit behind the ball and don't be shy. And it was amazing how under conditions where I was around really good golfers and stuff, they'd see me take my vicious pass at the bunker and I'd plop it 5 feet and make the putt. I was in fact, bunker play is probably the best thing I ever did.
Really?
No.
Maybe you should start practicing there to get your confidence back.
The only problem is I'd practice in a bunker long enough to where I'd start developing tendonitis. I'm screwed. I should get serious about starting to start that professional sexual twister league. Sexual twister it's the coming thing.
Naked twister? Yeah.
Well, I would assume if it's sexual, you're not playing with scuba diving outfit on. It's challenging. I've had a few test cases, and it's harder than it looks. And that plastic gets kind of slippery.
I'm sure it does.
So, but you know what? The wonderful thing about sexual twister, no matter how fierce the competition is, it always ends up in laughter.
Everybody wins.
Yep. Oh, it's a win-win all the way around. So now, how many times have you been in California?
Counting this time?
Yeah.
1.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
Well, welcome.
When I landed in Burbank, I sent my wife a text in all caps. It said, "I'm in California."
Oh, you really did one of those deals?
Yeah.
Oh, that's embarrassing.
Yeah.
Did you kiss the tarmac?
No, that's gross, man.
No, you got to kiss the tarmac.
No, I don't.
Oh,
No, no,
yeah.
no, no.
The greasy oil.
No, thank you.
You can smell it from about 6 inches away.
That sounds delicious.
Yeah, I've kissed the tarmac a couple places internationally.
Yeah, that's because you were afraid the plane was going to go down.
Well, I just wanted to make sure everybody saw that I was kissing everybody's ass right from the get-go. And from about 6 inches down, you could really smell good airport tarmac cement.
Sounds great.
Oh, it's just,
Never happened.
it's good. You know what? It may even get warm enough here to where we could even try cooking an egg on the cement.
It doesn't get that hot here.
I've done it. It takes a while. It's not like down in Texas where you can cook a couple eggs pretty quick.
Yeah, you can cook fucking bacon on the sidewalks in San Antonio. It gets pretty hot, man.
Kenny Rogers Prostra chicken.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it gets hot as balls down there, man.
Yeah. Well, I've been to Austin plenty, and I like Austin.
So you got a buddy in Austin, right?
Austin's a great town. And I've worked in Austin several times. Got good memories. Listened to great music.
A lot of music.
Went and saw. I'm good friends with the Cheap Trick outfit, and
What?
It just so happened. Yeah, no, I know those guys pretty well. And
What does that have to do with Austin? Did they live in Austin?
No, they were playing. They opened for Aerosmith, and Aerosmith was touring through, and I saw that they were playing at the University of Texas
How are
stadium.
you friends with Cheap Trick?
I went to see them play in about 1992, and I saw Cheap Trick play starting in about 76. I saw 3 New Year's Eve shows in a row in Los Angeles. I've seen them.
Where at? Like the Hollywood Bowl or something?
No, the Forum.
Really?
17505. I mean,
Wow.
they were big. They were the New Year's Eve act. In fact, when they really broke, I saw them at UC Irvine, which is a Brainiac school down here south. And a friend of mine played baseball, and he's not a Brainiac, but he was a good pitcher, and he played for Irvine. And he was down there going to school at the time, and Cheap Trick was going to have an unannounced warm-up gig for the Forum show.
Really?
And it was it was December 29th. And my buddy Bob, we got tickets front and center, and it was just, they were a little looser, and it was a shakedown. They were really using it as a real live, mic check. I didn't know them then. And then in 1991 or 92, they were playing a little club in Ventura called the Ventura Concert Theater, and it was one of those old movie theaters that the seats had been torn out, and they had built risers and made it like a little nightclub. And Cheap Trick was playing. And I went with my buddy who was Scott. We had the Kimsters together.
Okay.
And he rendezvoused with me up there, and we had a great time. And we were both Cheap Trick devotees. And literally about halfway through the show, this big bouncer taps me on the shoulder, and you can barely hear. And he leans down and yells in my ear, "Rick wants to see you backstage after the show. Just meet over here." And of course,
Oh, yeah.
And that sparked a friendship that has lasted this long. And I call him occasionally, and I'm actually closer to Rick's son. Rick's son Dax is the drummer now for Cheap Trick.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and that's a blast to be good friends with the son of Rick Nielsen. Oh, and by the way, he's a friggin' hell of a drummer. Oh, and by the way, he doesn't warm up. Can you imagine a professional musician, a drummer, not warming up before a concert?
Really? He doesn't?
He says the downbeat's enough for him.
Wow.
Yeah. He was also cocky enough to tell me that his brother Miles is a musician. And Rick Nielsen is so proud. First of all, he looks like Rick Nielsen. I mean, even though he's 70 now or whatever, he's got his outfit on. But he whips out his phone, and he's showing family photos like they were baby pictures. And he's got photos of, Dax was playing in the band already, so he didn't have photos of Dax. He had his daughter. His daughter's a model, grandkids. He had a picture of Miles, and I mentioned Miles to Dax. And Miles had a movie he had done the music for won Best Documentary Feature Academy Awards. And
Really?
Rick was really proud of that. That's
really cool.
Rick led with that. And Dax he didn't pull me aside, but later on we were talking, and Dax goes, "I can play circles around Miles." And I did most of that music. So not only is he a great drummer, he's a great dude. He's a cocky son of a bitch, and
That's
I like
awesome.
that too. And he's dialed in. And I've gotten to know, I would love
How
to...
old is Dax?
Dax is probably, I'm guessing Dax is close to 40.
Okay.
Rick is in his mid to late 60s, and Robin Zander, the singer, who is an absolute I don't know what he does. He may not be a human being, because he sings so much, and Rick says he's the best singer he's ever seen by a mile. He will show up not being able to talk, and within 45 minutes he's singing.
Not being able to talk
Not being able to talk.
Really?
I can't talk. He goes into the bathroom and he blows it out. And I can't do it now because you would distort, but it would he just goes in and he used to smoke cigarettes. He doesn't smoke anymore.
Right.
But I would love to direct him as an actor, and I would love to put Dax in a movie, because the camera loves Dax, and Dax has just the kind of attitude that I think he could be a really good actor, and I think he'd be a lead. Now Rick is the self-pronounced world's worst actor, And Robin laughs and says he's just about as bad as Rick.
So,
But I don't think so. I think Robin could act.
yeah, you do.
Yeah. So anyway, listen, I've been in music. Well, I listened to Alice Cooper and David Bowie in about 1975, and that hooked me. And I started listening to them and to Lou Reed, and I started my own band right out of high school. And I've loved music. Cheap Trick was one of our absolute, not idols, but they inspired us. They were the king of the 3-minute song. And Scott and I said, you know what, if we can't tell this song in 3 minutes, we're not doing it. And we would put ourselves under that gun, because that's the kind of band we were. We kind of did angry young man music.
Right.
And angry young man music doesn't really play for long, unless you've got just a kick-ass lead filling. Which we had a pretty good lead guitar player, but our songs were kept pretty short. God, we love Cheap Trick. We patterned songs after Cheap Trick songs, and then getting to meet them, big thrill. One of the advantages to being an actor.
Is that you get to meet some really cool people?
There are perks. There's a tremendous non-perk, which is the
So
insecurity.
just to be clear, you're saying there are perks to
Yes.
being an actor?
Well, there are incredible non-perks. There's insecurities that drive you insane.
And then the whole privacy issue.
But I don't even count that. I count on not knowing that you've got another job. Not knowing, is this it? Did I miss something? Am I done? When 6 months goes by and the phone doesn't ring and you're just married and your wife's looking at you, it's a whole new ballgame, and so that's an insecurity and a scar that's real. But the perks are also real. Getting to meet Rick Nielsen, getting to look him in the eye for the first time, and then getting to listen to him play guitar after knowing him. And then in Austin, he was on stage playing a guitar that was $220,000. He had like 15 guitars with him. And my buddy, who is a guitar collector himself, he doesn't have anything worth more than about $50,000. Rick was playing on stage with a guitar that was conservatively $250,000.
Wow.
And he's got tens of millions of dollars worth of guitars.
Sure.
Well, and Dax told me, I'm telling a little company secret, Dax was a fill-in for a while.
Right.
And then when Dax finally got a call from his dad and was being offered a contract to be the drummer for Cheap Trick, $30,000 a year total. Now they play a lot of shows. It's a lot of traveling. Now he was allowed to.
But he's a hired gun.
He was the son of Rick Nielsen. He was allowed to play with other bands if it didn't conflict with a Cheap Trick gig, but $30,000 and coach travel. Rick was making him pay. It's not quite like that now. And the fact is also, Dax is one of 3 children of Rick, and Rick's done pretty well for himself. So, if Rick wants to be a little cheap now, it ends up working out good for everybody in the long run. But anyway, when Dax said that what he was making was $30,000 a year for a frontline band, that's one band leader who is cheap. He had his son. That's the thing about it is and Bunny taught him to play. Bunny Carlos taught Dax to play the drums.
Really?
If once Rick saw that he had a son that could play the drums and be in the band, I mean, geez, if you can't lowball him, who can you lowball?
Right. Now that makes me wonder what Wolfgang Van Halen's getting paid.
You know what? It could be ridiculously low. He's gotten a bump, and he records.
I'm sure.
In fact, last year it made me cry, listening to songs where the father is playing the guitar and the son is playing the drums, and they're playing rock and roll like nobody's business. That last album that they came out with, Bang Zoom Crazy Goodbye, I think that's what it's called. Anyway, it's really, really a good album. And for a man in his mid to late 60s, Rick Nielsen is a guitar god. And he is when people like Slash. Mm-hmm. I had a chance to talk to him for a minute. Slash idolizes Rick Nielsen.
Right.
And Slash is a freaking great guitar player.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, it's just the perk. Tickets to baseball games. Occasionally a World Series game will pop up.
Like the MLB World Series?
Yeah. You know,
because I know you go to a lot of college World Series. Well, not a lot, but
I went to college World Series. Yeah, no, when the Dodgers are in town, I mean, listen, that's when you throw. If you're an actor, Ron a lot more than me, but you throw your weight around, and the business is getting a lot tougher on people getting freebies into games. Like you don't see Flava Flav very much anymore.
I think he's in prison.
Is he? Used to see him. He used to be.
I think he took a butcher knife to his stepson.
Really?
Yeah. He might be out by now, but.
Do you think they made him take his watch away?
His clock off?
His clock off when he went to the can?
You're going to need to put your personal effects in here.
We need a moving van.
You're going to need a bigger envelope. Boy.
What a character. You know another guy I was thinking of the other day? Super Freak.
Rick James?
Rick James.
Is he still around?
I think so.
Didn't he go to jail too?
Yeah, a couple of times.
I think, didn't him and his wife, chain up some chick in the basement?
Yes, they had his thing going.
It was the 70s.
Hey.
Or the 90s.
Super
whatever.
Freak.
Yeah, he wasn't lying.
I love music and life in general. If you really stop to listen to the song or smell the roses or laugh at the joke, life's pretty good. It's rare that, at least for me, it's rare that life gets shitty.
Well, that's good.
There's just too much good stuff. Listen, I'm a conservative, and I would have voted for a potted plant as opposed to the Democratic nominee.
Okay.
However, I'm not a huge Trump guy. Trump is the greatest thing to happen to American politics since sliced bread.
How so?
First of all, he's not being a bad president. He's unique. He's different.
Unique.
He's being picked on a lot. He is firing back like nobody's business.
Nobody's ever done before.
He has been the most entertaining president, and I guarantee you he has made all of our enemies think twice.
Think so?
I would think that the Russians would want Hillary in there, not Donald Trump. Hillary knows the system. Hillary knows the game. Hillary's been Secretary of State. Hillary was profiteering while she was working for the federal government. I would think that would be somebody that you might want to do business with if you were Russia. And this Donald Trump businessman that likes to put his name on everything and fly around in his own jet. I wonder who's using the jet now. His kid? Because he's not using the Trump jet.
No, I thought he said he was going to because his jet was nicer. But
his jet's not nicer than the 747.
That's what he said. He said,
he's
my
full
jet
of
is
crap.
nicer than this.
Well, you know what? That's part of his charm. Is Trump's just full of crap about 98% of the time, like most movie producers and television producers.
Sure.
He's an active television producer.
Still?
He's got a credit airing. He's a regular producer on a show. It was a court case.
What show is it?
It was a spinoff of Apprentice or something, and he's getting executive producer credit.
Really?
And the question came up is, can the president be executive producer on a show? And the answer was yes.
Oh, there you go.
I mean, finally there'll be a full-fledged movie star. I mean, Ronald Reagan retired from being an actor and became a politician, but eventually George Clooney or
You think so?
Dwayne Johnson.
You know what? It wouldn't surprise me a bit if it was Dwayne Johnson.
If Dwayne Johnson played his cards right, he could be the president in 8 years. He wouldn't even need to run for another office.
He might be able to be the president in 3 years.
Well, yeah. He'd have to write a book. He'd have to get busy. I don't believe he could do what Schwarzenegger did in California.
Really?
I think he'd have to prove himself. And he could. He seems like a very articulate guy, and he certainly hasn't made bad moves as a man in the entertainment business.
Uh-huh. And it doesn't seem like he's made a lot of enemies either. Every interview that I've heard where people work with him, they say he's the greatest person they've ever met.
And funny how this is, it's hard to pin him down politically.
Oh, I never thought about that, but I guess I really don't know.
I think conservatives
He
think
did
he's
a bit about that
conservative.
on Saturday Night Live.
About being a little...
About running for president.
Oh.
And then Tom Hanks came out and said he'd be his running mate.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Tom thought about it, I think, for a little while.
You think so?
Yeah. Ron and Tom are pretty good friends.
You think?
Well, you'd be
How
surprised.
many movies have they done together?
Well, they did they did the Da Vinci Codes. They did 3 of those, and then they did
Splash.
Splash. Did he do another one? Maybe not.
I wanted to say Cocoon, but that wasn't him.
No. They've worked together. Oh, Apollo 13,
There you go.
which was, he was not the first choice.
Really?
Costner. And then they took a hard look at Harrison Ford and determined he was too old.
I think they took a hard look at Harrison Ford and decided he was a fucking asshole.
Well, he was old.
Still is.
Yeah, and it's amazing.
Was it Burbank Airport where he almost hit a plane?
No, it was somewhere up north, I think. I'll tell you what, I knew a guy who went to school with him, and he was, even though he was on everybody's
With Harrison?
radar, Harrison Ford, he was on everybody's radar as a movie star. I knew people that were, Gino Havens was a guy that worked for George Lucas, and Gino Havens was a casting expert. And Gino Havens would absolutely just drool talking about Harrison Ford. And this is before the conversation.
Really?
It's before he did anything. He did, and Francis hired him to do that little part in Apocalypse Now. And Harrison didn't really like it, would rather be building furniture. And honest to God, he considered himself a much better finishing carpenter than he was an actor.
Interesting.
And that sort of
If I remember
laissez-faire.
correctly, didn't he get cut out of E.T.? Wasn't he in E.T.? I think he was like Elliot's principal at school. And
Did
there
he?
was a couple of scenes and they cut it out. I think that's true.
He was, I've seen Apocalypse Now a few times. I've kind of reconnected my friendship with Charlie, and Charlie is an Apocalypse Now devotee.
I'm glad that you have rekindled your relationship with Charlie.
Charlie's a good dude.
He seems like a really great guy who's made a couple of bad decisions but doesn't seem to catch a break.
Charlie hasn't made one bad decision in his life. He knows exactly what he's done, and he is willing to pay the price. Sometimes he gets a little sad that the price is steep.
He hasn't made an uninformed decision, you're saying? He's made some questionable decisions.
Well, not in his mind.
Well,
There was only one time. I asked him, because we worked on that. There was a thing that Crackle, that
I know,
new
I watched
platform.
it. I liked it a lot.
Oh,
it was super
man,
cool.
Mad Families.
Mad Families.
Jeez.
Yeah, y'all should go check that out. It's on Crackle. It's about a bunch of different families who go camping.
A film made in 16 days with a cast of hundreds. It was phenomenal that it even got finished.
It was great.
Charlotte, the gal that was in the Carl's Jr. commercials.
Yeah, I don't know what that is.
Oh man, she is the most beautiful woman in the world, and she's a great actress. The problem with Charlotte,
Was she in that movie?
yeah,
Was it Charlie's girl in that movie?
she was the tart. She was the blonde.
Right.
She was at Carl's Jr. commercials where she would eat the Carl's
Like in a
double-
bikini and,
and the
shit just dripping all
stuff
over
would
her?
drip down, and she'd wiggle.
Yeah,
and
those are great commercials.
well, I'll tell you what, she's prettier in person.
Yeah.
And she doesn't act like a wimp. She doesn't act like a prima donna. She acts like a woman who kind of knows she's pretty, but she'd like to make some money.
Cool.
Yeah, and she was really good. And that movie was so mismanufactured that, we didn't have any time to rehearse or develop anything. And for somebody like me, I've worked on so many low-budget movies. That's
It was kind of all of a sudden, wasn't it? Like there wasn't a whole lot of lead time, was
No, the production heads had like 4 days of prep. The prop guy, here's a movie about 3 families camping, multi-generational families
there?
camping.
Multicultural, multi-generational.
Less than a week of prep for the prop men to gather all their stuff.
That's crazy.
I know. Yep. Sony cutting it to the bone.
Where'd y'all film? Was that here?
Out at Disney Ranch. It was great. It was because we were where we are right now is going against traffic. So during commuter time, everybody's coming into town. We were going out at we were going out to Disney Ranch, and Disney's got an odd way of operating. They've got little dudes in hats standing around telling you not to go more than 7 miles an hour. They've got dudes.
What kind of hats?
Like the same kind of hats that they would wear on the African safari ride.
Oh, okay.
Like a pith helmet.
Okay, gotcha.
And shorts, and show you where the cigarette butt cans are. Although I did give up cigarette smoking a couple of years ago and managed to give up dipping. When I quit playing golf, I managed to quit dipping.
Well, you had nowhere to spit.
Yeah, and I had no reason. It was like the bovine serenity that was gained by putting a little dip in my mouth was very helpful on a golf course. But without having to play golf, it's like it's not much fun to dip at a restaurant.
Right.
It's doable.
Sure.
I went about 15 years without acting without a dip, or every movie I've ever been. In fact, it was just the last thing I did was one of the first things, the second thing I'd ever done where I hadn't had dip.
What's the last thing you did?
The last thing I did that had dip, well, it was Crackle. It was Mad Families. I had a little. It was more for the character than anything else. By that point in my dipping career, I was dipping a can about once a month.
Oh, okay.
So I wasn't even, there are guys that dip a can every 2 days.
Or one day.
Yeah. Or, you hate those guys when they say, "Hell, can I have a little bit?" And, you've got a nice can of about half a dip.
And they take half the can?
It's like they use their finger like a fish hook. They kind of get in there and scoop it up and, thanks for that.
It's like they're picking up a bowling ball. They stick their whole fucking hand in there.
Yeah.
What are you doing, man?
Hey, I've borrowed dip from guys, so.
Sure, but not the whole can.
No. But it was a nasty habit nobody really liked, except I liked it. And I kind of liked it because it kept the makeup man on their toes. Or, wardrobe occasionally, I'd have a little spillage. I'd have to go to wardrobe. But no, like there's this Planet Ibsen, this little independent experimental film that I did several years ago with a he wasn't young at the time, but a child actor named Gabriel Damon, who's a good friend of mine. We went down to Florida and worked on this little $80,000 movie, and this young guy had won.
That was the whole budget?
Yeah, but he got $200,000 in goods and services.
Oh, cool.
He won a screenwriting award. So
in Florida.
Yeah, it was the Sun Coast something screenwriting competitions, and he had all the 16 millimeter film he could shoot and develop. He had all the camera equipment and all the prime lenses he needed. They gave him a grip package. He had electrical package. What he was responsible for was paying the actors and feeding them.
Wow.
Yeah, and it was the movie's a little convoluted and a little slow, but that's where I play Ibsen, almost like an intellectual Beetlejuice. It was a fun character to play, and not that Ibsen dipped, but I played him dipping. And also too, it was all in the mind of August Strindberg. So I wasn't really capturing Ibsen. I was capturing what Strindberg thought Ibsen would be.
Right.
So I was like an intellectual Beetlejuice, and I had ink stains because I was writing, and it was just a fun part to play. It was entered in the Santa Barbara Film Festival. The fellow that wrote the screenplay was the director, and he fell in love with the material a little much. And I only wish that myself and Steve Dumoschel, the other actor that played Strindberg, and Gabe even, would have had a little more of a chance to work with the material and get it a little livelier and a little more honest. But this director, Jonathan, and I really like him, he's a good guy, he just, at every mention of changing the material, he dug his heels in.
Really?
To the point where after a few days, you just kind of quit asking, because it's like, I don't want to, he's got an excuse, and God bless him. And yet, at the end of the movie, the thing that he liked the best about the movie were the improvs we did.
That's funny.
God damn it. If he just would have done that.
Well, this was his first movie, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's a learning.
No, I know. Yes. And me and Gabe had a wager going because we were both on for the entire movie. We traveled together down to Florida and we came home together. he played a young August Strindberg, and this fellow Steve Dumochel played an older Strindberg. But we had a wager going on how many people would quit the movie. The over-under at like 6.5.
Wow.
I took the over. It covered. The prop man sent it over. The prop man quit, and he backed his pickup truck into the little stage area that we had. There was a Air Force base down in Homestead, Florida that got pretty much torn down. They made the Air Force base smaller, and then all the ruined buildings on the outside of the Air Force base were just left. And one of them, they were letting people use to shoot stuff in. So we were using it as it was a heavy cement building. It was an old Air Force building, and it was crumbling. That's where we shot. And we saw this prop man drive his pickup truck into that building, and he started to load his props up. And we weren't nearly finished.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. And as a selfish actor, I've got my 3 or 4 things that I'm using regularly. Right. And I went to the guy, and I can't think of his name right now. He was a nice guy. He had just had enough,
sure.
You know. And I pleaded with him. I said, hey, listen, I'm an actor, and I really use that pen and, the little ink dauber thing. It's like, if you could just leave those. I mean, I promise, I'll get them to you, And after a minute, he finally relented, and he left a few things behind, and then he took this truck. And then I collected from Gabe. There were a couple of questionable ones. Did they quit or just disappear? Because on little low-budget movies, you can't really tell all the time.
Sure.
But those low-budget movies, I say those, things like Planet Ibsen or Ice Cream Man or, I did a little micro-budgeted movie a couple of years ago for a dear friend of the family. It was the retelling of the wolf story, Little Red Riding Hood, except it was called Huff. It was about a psychotic stepfather and 3 little junior teenage girls.
Okay.
And it was a horror movie, and these guys were trying to design it right into that prime spot. And I had a blast working on it. I played one of the neighbors of the psychotic guy, and he almost killed me in the scene. I see him kidnap one of the girls, but I'm kind of scared to say anything. But just getting to work, when it's low budget, it's almost like playing a baseball game where there's not a lot of pressure. I can relax and throw a lot of pitches on the outside corner. When I act, I can do things a little different. If it's a mainstream movie, I'll tend to play it safe because I know that this is a piece of business and they want a certain thing. And even though they might like surprises, what they really want is they want a guy like me to come in and throw strikes. Because, I'm not a run-of-the-movie guy. I'm a relief pitcher. And when they hired Clint Howard, when Adam Sandler hired Clint Howard to be in his couple little movies, what they're hiring is a guy to come in and blow gas and throw strikes. And it's fun, when you're in the minor leagues, you can nibble at the corners and even walk a guy, nobody really cares.
Sure.
Hey, listen, for a guy like me to have all the experience of working in big budgeted movies and shows as network television programs as a child, and being around and getting to experience all of Ron's comings and goings and adventures, and you don't know how many great phone calls I've gotten in the middle of the night with him venting.
Him being excited or him
venting?
Really?
Oh yeah, wanting to try to figure out how he can
handle somebody
or something.
Right.
And he learned from Tony La Russa, who was the manager for the St. Louis Cardinals.
Okay.
At one point, he said, he gets paid to manage all 25 guys, and if there's a couple of pricks in the group, he gets paid to manage those guys too. And Ron made the connection. Ron would love to make every movie with Tom Hanks, but Ron gets paid to handle the tough ones too.
Right.
Ron was a great basketball coach. He would have been
Who did he coach for?
He coached for the Howard Hurricanes. When I was 10, 11, and 12 years old, we had a team.
I feel like I've seen a jersey somewhere.
Yes, in my office. I think that's Jerry Figueroa's jersey, as a matter of fact. Dad was the manager, and Ron was the coach, and From the time Ron was about 16 years old, he had this innate ability to get the very most out of his talent. We never had the best guys in the city. We never, we didn't have the best guy. We didn't have the tallest. We didn't have the best shooters, but we had a plan. And we won the championship one year, and then one year we lost in the championship game. And it was all because Ron could coach him up. And Ron did not have a system and make the players fit into the system. Ron would size up his talent and then set about getting the most out of them, which is what he does as a director. We had long conversations about this. Mom and Dad came from Oklahoma, and it's pretty bleak. There's a lot of bleakness in and around.
Well, especially back then.
Yeah, now even. There's the oil business has gotten a lot of people, wildcat and poor, and the farming business has changed because it's gotten all corporate, and the weather's bad. If Dad hadn't had the audacity, the chutzpah, to go to New York City and break into the business, Ron didn't think he could do it, and I don't believe I would have had the...
Y'all have had this conversation?
Yeah, Ron would have been a high school teacher and maybe a basketball coach. Would have been a good one.
What would you have been?
Oh, probably an inmate.
You think you would have just got in trouble?
Well, yeah, I think knowing some of my relatives and stuff, and the weather and the opportunity or lack of opportunity, the marriages to the same woman and different women, and it's pretty nutty stuff back there. And I don't have any sort of particular inbred family or anything, but it's a harder life. And I just don't think that I would have been the kind of guy to lace up my shoes and go to New York City.
What made your dad do it?
He wanted...
Was he married at the time? He wasn't,
no,
right?
He wanted to not be a farmer. He got the bug when he was about... I'll tell you what, you ought to have my dad.
I would love to have your dad.
He is a...
Let's call him up. He can fly home right now.
Well, yeah, I think he's a little preoccupied right now with what he's got going back east.
But you said he's coming home this weekend?
He is coming home Saturday. I don't know.
I don't leave till Tuesday.
There you go. He'd be way up for it. But he can recall the exact moment when he got the acting bug. Back when Dad grew up, where he grew up, their idea of a Saturday night was put up a boxing ring and let anybody put on the gloves and box. And people would stand around and watch, and that was entertainment. And at one point, when he was about 19, he had gone to the University of Oklahoma for a year and a half.
Is that the one in Norman?
Yes. And he actually, Mom and Dad were introduced to each other by Dennis Weaver.
I love that story.
Dennis was an upper division actor at school, and he was teaching a scene study class, and he gave one side to Dad and one side to Mom. For
those listeners who are, let's say in their 20s.
Yes.
Did you ever work with Dennis Weaver?
Yes.
What?
Oh, hold on. And Dennis Weaver put Mom and Dad together.
Uh-huh.
Dennis was from Kentucky. Dennis was a health food nut, and he very quickly got on Gunsmoke and became a character named Chester and became very famous and won Emmys. And then,
he won Emmys on Gunsmoke?
As Chester.
Okay. Did your dad work on Gunsmoke?
Yes. Dad was born on a horse. In fact, once he got done with the University of Oklahoma, he literally was considering riding his horse to Hollywood so the people in Hollywood could see what a real cowboy looked like. And
none of this, I've got a saddle in my trunk?
No. Dad, without batting an eye, could ride across the country. Dad's mom, Grandma, was one of the best horsewomen that anybody's ever seen of her generation.
Really?
Yeah.
What was her name?
Ethel. She never rode competitively, like my cat, only it's not. I didn't name my cat after my grandma. Well, how about we take a break?
Let's pause here.
Yeah.
Hey guys, I think that's a long enough episode. We're going to go ahead and cut it right there. Come back next time for part 2, where I hang out with Clint Howard just a little bit more. Opening music is the song Magnolia from the 2014 album Intransigence, used with permission from Douglas Miles Clark. Closing music is Apollo from the 2001 album Into the Known by the band Sapphire. Thanks for hanging out with us and getting to know a little bit about our guest. We'll see you next time on Fascination Street.